welcome to My New Day. It's Friday, which means it's Fight for Your Family Fridays, and we are at the very beginning of an 8-week series called Best Friends, Best Lovers.
8 Ways to be Satisfied in Love. Audrey and I authored the book just a few years ago, and it has really become a real bestseller. I've had several pastors and people that we've counseled with, and they say, you know what, Bob, that is one of the best marriage books I've read. And I'm not tooting my own horn here, but there's something unique and different because I've read a lot of them. And something that we have chosen to do in this book, and what we will do in this series of programs, is simply this. We refuse just to give you a list of things to do. You know, stop doing this and start doing that, because that can get extremely exhausting. But what we do want to do is have a heart change, a heart transformation.
We know that you want to be best friends, best lovers. We all do. We want to be married to the person that we can't wait to spend time with. And if you're not there, but you desire to be there, you are in the right place at the right time. We'll be right back after this. As we begin the first of the series of 8, I just want to tell you a little story of what happened when we spoke at a conference that we titled Best Friends, Best Lovers, which really will entail the information and just really our hearts for our dream for your marriage. And this one particular couple could not wait to get home and tell their children that they were now going to live together again and they were going to be married once again. And that story I will never forget, because they described the fact that they had been separated and even just working on their divorce papers, and they hadn't been living together for a year. And they came up to us at the conference just beaming. They said, you have no idea what it's meant for someone to give us hope and someone to give us a dream again that we could be best friends and best lovers. And they had experienced radical forgiveness. And I finally had to ask the question. I said, how did you end up coming to a marriage conference if you've been separated for a year and you're actually working on your divorce papers? And they just kind of chuckled, and she says, well, I was listening to a radio station and there was a contest and I won free tickets to this conference and I didn't want to come alone, so I asked my husband to come with me. And I think, isn't God good? There's a divine appointment for that couple that no one could have orchestrated but the Holy Spirit. And I believe, Bob, that the couples watching today are not watching by accident, but there's going to be hope that you can be best friends and best lovers. Yes, there's been pain in the past, but it is not too late, and I want to infuse that kind of vision and dream for your marriage.
Good. And I just want to say thank you for investing in your marriage and setting time aside. And also I want to say thank you to our studio audience that has joined us today. I really appreciate each of you coming and being a part. And as we begin today, Audrey and I, we spend a lot of time, helping people, in whatever way that we can. We author books, we do conferences, we, create materials, you talk on phone, whatever it might be. But then one of the saddest things for me is this, is that when you are sharing an idea, a concept, or even beginning to create a plan, a rescue plan. Who wants to suffer? Who wants to live in pain? Nobody does. But when you give them an opportunity to embrace truth, that they might experience the grace of God, but then they refuse to implement that plan, and they walk the road of a divorce or of a separation. You see, that breaks my heart. But as we begin, sometimes we simply need to count the cost and recognize that there is going to be a cost, but I'm committed to it. There's going to be things inside of me that I recognize are going to have to change, but I'm committed to it. More than that, I'm also committed to you. I'm committed to our marriage. I'm committed to our family. And even larger than that, could we begin to see beyond and see to our future generations, to our children's children? It might be pain for a moment. We might have to look at some things for a little while, but is the sacrifice worth it? I'm evidence to say yes. Yes. You see, yes. I can get extremely emotional about it because there were things in me that I had to lay down. You see, there was a requirement from me to be humble. And here's the other thing, is that it took work. I wish it was easy, but the rewards far outweigh anything that you would have to sacrifice, anything that you would have to lay down. Because here's what you begin to experience is life. And what I want you to do is to I want you to be blessed. I want your family to be blessed. You see, I want you to recognize the favor of God that's extended towards you and upon your life. But then here's the next thing. As a result of this, you will become a blessing and a miracle for others. You see, your life and your marriage is extremely significant, and I want you to be that miracle for others.
It's so true. And I think as we begin, I'd like to just describe what that means to be a blessing to others, because what happens in the end game of this whole thing of being best friends, best lovers, is that it doesn't stop there. Because if you meet couples like this, and I'm looking at a bunch of them right here, but when you meet people that are married, that actually like each other, and you can tell, and it's obvious, I mean, that's contagious. I mean, you know it, and it's something you can't hide. I mean, you can see those couples that have what we call this electric conversation going on, and they have this connection that goes far beyond just something physical. They are connected from the heart. And as a girl, I mean, that's what I dream of. In fact, I don't want to settle for anything less than being connected in every way to my husband, because I didn't get married just to get by and just to have one of those kind of marriages that makes it. You know, who wants to have just a marriage that's a settle? I mean, Bob, I'm kind of stealing your thunder because you talk about this a lot, but we talk about the layers of what happens in the cycles of a married relationship. I know sitting here, a lot of you have been married a long time, and you know, we went through a crisis in our marriage, and there was a season of our marriage where we were literally barely surviving. Maybe you've been at that place where you feel like you can hardly make it through another day. That might be you today, and you're watching the show just saying, give me something that I can, some hope that I can grab onto for dear life. You know, there's nothing you can do but work through that. You can't, I wish we could just push a magic button, but there's a season of time where you just literally have to survive, and there are tools that we can give you to survive during that time. But then you get to a place, Bob, where we're settling.
Yeah, you just kind of settle. You know, you just kind of
we made it through. We made it, yeah. Bob likes his stool, can you tell?
But the thing is that things are stable.
Yes.
You know, and when things are stable, typically the storm has passed.
Yeah.
But what are you missing? The joy of life. You know, no longer are you laughing easily with each other, and you're not thriving, but you are stable. You've survived the storm. But what is in between a life that is thriving, a marriage that is significant, influencing others, is what we call personal victory. And that's what this series is about. Because you'd really like to make it about the other person. You'd really like to make it about your circumstances and
I just want my husband to get some personal victory, and we would be just fine. I mean, that's how I think. I'd like you to just back
off and leave me alone, and we would be fine. You know what I mean? Like, just give me some space here. You know, whatever it might be. But you see, those are my issues. And we'd really like to point blame at others and say, you're the cause of my pain. You're the cause of my problem. But where there is, you know, from the place of just, you know, being stable, you know, but who wants a marriage like that?
And you guys, most of us, marriages that we experience are kind of in that place. They're stable, and I don't see a lot of joy and enthusiasm and excitement in there. That's not the average. The average couple just stays stable.
So what do we want? Spontaneous laughter.
Yes.
There is a great indicator of a healthy, you know, relationship, a healthy marriage, when laughter comes easily.
Yes.
And for Audrey and I, we went through a season where things were just gray. And I needed personal breakthrough.
And I needed to back off and get my own personal victory and try, instead of praying to God that He would get personal victory. Because that was my mission for so much of that time. Is I thought to myself, we're not laughing together. We're not dreaming together anymore. There is not that just feeling of safety in our relationship. I feel like we're just making it, and we're not going to divorce. We're going to keep this thing together. But I wanted more so bad, and I thought it all started with him, and it didn't. It started with me. Right.
And so in this area, you know, what we find is that there's a neediness, you know, that we have in our lives, and where there's need, you know, or this longing or hoping for something that I don't have, really what it's connected to is a sense of lack. If I need something, therefore I don't have it. There's a sense of lack that's going on inside of me. So if we truly want to become best friends and best lovers, if we truly want to be satisfied in love, we have to really begin to be willing to deal with the neediness of our own heart. And who's going to answer that neediness? Who's going to fulfill that neediness? And if you got into this marriage for this individual, for your spouse to fill the gaps of your life, guess what? You will be disappointed. They will, fail you. They're not the one, because your completeness and your wholeness is found where? In Christ. And that's not a cop-out, that's a reality. And that was one of the largest transitions that took place in my life. As we came out of a crisis in our marriage, I needed to begin to find my reality in God. Much more than just something that I'd give mental assent to. Because I really began to recognize that in many areas of my life, I was simply a professional Christian. I knew the answers. I knew, the words. I knew what was required of me. But did I really interact with my living God? That's the big question.
And so as we begin the foundation of these 8 weeks together, where we're going to be satisfied in love, we are convinced, and we know for you, that you have complete access to the God of all joy. Today we're talking about laughter. We want you to dream and laugh. He invented laughter and smiling. Think about it. He didn't have to do that for us, but He knew how much important laughter was. And we are convinced that that God is the grandest, most influential, most accessible joy giver that we have. That might be new information to you, but that's what we're going to expound on, and that's who we want you to tap on to. Bob, I just want to read some definitions as we get started, because I'm all about the definitions. And the book that we are featuring these 8 series on is Best Friends, Best Lovers here, and we have a glossary of terms. And the first one here is best friends. Let's really talk about what best friends look like, because if we're on our way to get somewhere, we have to see the goal and what it looks like. In fact, we want you to begin using your imagination and dreaming about what it would look like for you and your spouse, or maybe if you're not married yet, what it will look like one day for you and your spouse to be best friends. Well, best friends, their strong foundation holds them strong through adversity and through ecstasy. They're comfortable in each other's silence or in electrifying conversation. They laugh together, dream together, cry together, and pray together. And nothing can drive them apart, because they know they are deeply loved, and that love will never be questioned. That's a best friend.
That's a best friend. Somebody who is stable when you've got the crazies. You know what I mean? That's really, somebody who's going to speak to you straight, but yet they're not going to leave you. That type of thing. Best lovers. And we'll take an entire program and we'll talk about sex, And oh wow, you all got flush on me there. But the whole thing is that, it isn't all about sex. Sex is extremely important. I recognize that. But what we'll talk about is intimacy. And where there's intimacy, there's transparency, there's openness and honesty, but it results from a place of safety. And so we'll talk about being best lovers.
And now for just the last glossary of terms, so to speak, is the word satisfied. Because we don't always know what it means to be satisfied, or the importance of being satisfied. So as best friends and best lovers, we want to be satisfied ones. I want you to make that your goal now, that you want to be a satisfied one. You're going like, what are you talking about?
Not a needy one.
Right.
Not where you're sucking the life out of the other person.
Exactly.
But a satisfied one.
They're opposites. Think about it. Needy and satisfied. And when we were reaching out to marriages thinking everyone's got this selfishness issue, like everyone's being so selfish, what is the opposite? We thought the opposite of selfishness was selflessness. Well, that was profound. But what really is the
let's think about that, okay? Because selfishness, is at the root of every relational issue or problem. Selfishness is. Somebody is being selfish, and usually it's you. Okay, you're blind to that fact, I understand that. But typically, it's you. But nobody wants to be identified as being selfish. And so the image that you think is, oh, I just need to lay down my life. Oh, I just need to give up. I need to give in. Ladies, you think, oh, I'm going to be the doormat again. That type of a thing. That's the image that we begin to create. If we're going to resolve this conflict, somebody has to lose. And that's not the way to live life. Who's going to lose this time? Who's going to win this time? And we'll talk about that, in our communications program. But, today, then what does, if you're not going to be selfish, then what will you be? a satisfied one. So let's go ahead on.
Well, the definition of a satisfied one is that you are so tapped into God that you have this relationship with Him, and it's not a crutch. It's not something that is just a pie in the sky. This is intimate relationship with the Creator, the one that made you, designed you, and loves you. And when you tap into that relationship in such a real way, that's that bridge of personal victory that we're talking about that takes us to that contagious, amazing, significant marriage. That's the bridge, the ladder that takes us there. And a satisfied one is so full of receiving constantly from the Lord joy, peace, my value, that I can't help but give. Think of a cup that is being filled up. Once it's full, what happens? It just starts going, exactly.
It's overflowing.
And what's going to happen? It's going to affect the stuff around the cup. Things are going to start spilling over.
So if you find in your marriage you're bankrupt, you have nothing to give, you are then what? Needy. Mm-hmm. You find yourself in a place of lack. Mm-hmm. Okay, then you begin to take a look at who did this to me. Mm-hmm. You know, who robbed from me, who took from me, who lied to me, who betrayed me. You know, who is this? You see, but the whole thing is where is your source truly from? Is it from the person that robbed you? Are they the ones that you're projecting so much significance onto? Who's the significant one truly in your life? And that's God. So if He's truly your source, all right, is He then going to be the one that will satisfy you even in your moments of brokenness, even in your moments of pain, even in your moments of betrayal, mm-hmm. where you tend to feel all is lost? Mm-hmm. Will He be the one that will satisfy you? Because when He does, you then still have something to give.
Exactly. And our observations of most people, and you'll probably agree with most of the people you've met, is that most people in life, when you really think about it, are dissatisfied. Most people in life just don't have enough this, don't have enough money, don't have the right job. They're always dwelling and thinking and meditating on the things that they don't have.
My kids are a pain, my wife is a pain, my boss is a pain.
They have a restless desire for something more.
It just goes on and on.
And your conversations with each other, well, I want this more, I want that more. We are a dissatisfied people. And that is not how we were meant to live. So our observation is, yes, there's been a dissatisfaction, but the other thing we've noticed is that most people live from their minds and their emotions, and they never live from the place of their heart. God's kingdom design was that we are supposed to live from the place of our heart, our secret place. That's where God dwells. But when we're not in touch with our heart, and that's an expression that anybody in any belief system, it doesn't matter if you attach religion to that or anything, people use the word heart a lot. Have you ever heard that? Like, oh, well, don't make that, when the squeeze is on, what's really in your heart is going to come out. But our great scripture that we all talk about is, out of the abundance of your heart, the mouth speaks. That is an indicator. But I'll tell you this, the heart is actually the real you. And some of us aren't even in touch with the real place of where we meet with God. And it is there that we are dissatisfied. And we can use our mind and emotions to try really hard to be good and to be satisfied. But if we were going to tell you guys, we just want you to get satisfied at the end of the show, but we didn't talk about where the satisfaction begins, we would be completely missing the point. Because so many of us want to work on our marriages. We'll buy a book that just gives us some list of things to do. Go to a date on Friday nights, do this, do that. Put that man on your list of things to do. Be nicer to him. It's like, really? I don't want to be nicer. Well, God says in Ezekiel 36:25, God gives us a new heart.
New heart with new desires.
Yeah, I want a whole new one.
I tend to, just because of the line of work that I find myself in, working with marriages and couples and the time. So I read, a lot of books and those kinds of things. And when I get into these behavioral books, my life just seems to hit the skids.
I get exhausted.
It really does, because I begin to take these, practices, which are good because they're honoring of the other person,
Mm-hmm.
Those types of things. But what we're looking for are real solutions and real answers. Because if all it is learned behavior, you're going to wear yourself out, because it will only last as long as you're working the system. But if you change the belief system of your heart and you allow God to satisfy you, then there's an endless source. So if God is really, really your source, then you can be loving. Then you can prefer the other as being more important than yourself. Then you can serve. Then you can lay your life down. Why? Because you're a satisfied one. And so I'm laughing because I've had, you know, a lot of this, and it's like, you know, I can run the psychological game. You know what I mean? I can play this, you know, you do this to me, you do that. You know, it's almost like a tit for tat, you know, and you do that and I do this, and it's a balancing, and it's like, you owe me. Do you see what I'm saying? So what we'll do is we'll take a short break, and we're going to come back, and we want to give you some real practical steps of how to apply it to your life. You know, because what you've been looking for is an answer. You know, you feel as though you're the one that is always giving. You're the one that is always getting the short end of the stick. You know, you're the one, you know, you understand what I'm saying? Here's the deal. I want you to become so satisfied in God, you see, that all of a sudden you're the satisfied one, and no longer are you looking to your spouse and trying to extract and get the life out of them.
Being needy is so unattractive, just FYI.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a short break, and we'll be back right after this. In today's program, we wanted to talk a lot about spontaneous laughter, and we just really didn't get there.
We got stuck on satisfied.
Because the thing is that too often we live life out of duty.
Yeah.
You see, and when you're living out of duty, all of a sudden you lose the spontaneity. You know, and you lose the laughter. You lose those, you know, the enjoyment of the moment. Why? Because it's just my job. You see, as a husband, as a wife, you know, I'm just serving you out of duty, and there's no real joy in that, and you miss the laughter.
Exactly. But I hope that as a result of these few minutes together, that you're going to decide that you are going to be a satisfied one. You're going to stop thinking about your spouse and say, I am going to be a satisfied one. So I have some questions for you to think about this next week, and they're this. What are the areas in my life have I been dissatisfied and disappointment? And where do I have a sense of lack? And where do I have a restless desire for something more? And will I be committed to spiritual heart surgery, looking for a new heart with new desires? And Bob, there's just so many. Do I find my identity and worth in my accomplishments? And do I look beyond my present unhappy circumstances and remain thankful for God's love and blessings? Do I exhibit selfishness and neediness in my relationship? Will I surrender my view and opinion and get God's view and opinion of me?
These are great questions, and these are great questions for you to be able to ask each other. And so I'd encourage you, please get a copy of the book, Best Friends, Best Lovers, and take time to read through it. And it will help you, because what we miss is the face-to-face. What we're really, really good at, here we go, you ready, is the side-by-side.
Yes.
You see, you've got your responsibilities, you've got your duties. I've got my task, you know, I'm keeping on task here, but what we're missing, here we go, you ready again?
Yes.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, you're being so
I'm loving
cheesy.
these chairs. I know,
Oh
but
my
I'm
gosh.
loving But what we're missing is the face-to-face,
Yes.
the transparency, the openness, and the honesty. Here's the deal. I prefer you, I desire you, therefore I'm making a decision today. I don't want to be a sad person. I want to be a joyful person. Therefore, I'm willing to make the commitment.
That's it.
I'm willing to make the sacrifice. I'm going to do the work because I choose you. And there will be a change within my heart.
We'll see you next time on My New Day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.